Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Horror Magic on Heart Over Ego Radio, a podcast dedicated to healing the shame and guilt associated with sex. I'm your host, Jenny McDaniel, and each week I feature a rad spiritual warrior, and today my guest is Leela Simmons. Leela believes that life is supposed to feel good, that women are built for pleasure, and that the best life is the life we choose for ourselves. She's an energy healer on a mission to increase the peace, power, and freedom of the world. A natural storyteller, teacher, and soother, working with Leela doesn't often feel like work, but much more like a good conversation with a friend that somehow ushered you into a new level of your personal power. When she's not facilitating women into their next best version of themselves, Leela can be found reading everything from personal development to epic fantasy, snuggling with her minis, and enjoying a cup of tea or watching really bad TV. Leela, it's so good to have you. How are you doing?
I'm very excited to be here and chatting with you. Anytime.
Ooh, your sound's a little low.
Is it better now?
There you are. How are you doing?
I'm really excited to be here. Jenny time is always a good time.
I love chatting with you, and if anyone's familiar with Heart Over Ego Radio, you can go to our archived episodes on any podcast app. Just search Heart Over Ego Radio, and you will find a bunch of Leela's past episodes. And Leela, you called yourself Rain Radio, and they can find many episodes. You were uploading for about a year there, so they can go back and find you. And Leela, what do you get into now? What are you getting yourself into?
My team told me to slow down, and so I am focused on allowing my body to heal. I will most likely be back with Heart Over Ego in the spring with a story podcast.
Oh.
But right now, I am allowing my body to heal, raising children, and helping women heal their histories.
Just like your bio says, holding space for women. Will you work with men, or do you specifically work with women? Does it have to be a particular type of man if you do?
It does. I will work with men. It does not have to be a particular type of man.
Okay.
It's just that I know women best because I am one.
Sure. Excellent. So men are allowed. You just tend to find yourself working with women more. And often, just like in my practice, it's open to the public, and 75% of my clients happen to be women. So it might just be the target market as women for healers in general. But always nice to offer healing and space for the gentleman as well.
Absolutely.
So,
and it's that like women are more likely to do the personal and spiritual development work. Men usually follow us down that path.
And that's cool too. Yeah, however it works. Absolutely. And, I've had many men across the years want some psychic readings or some empowerment classes or coaching or what have you. And it does tend to be a certain type of man, and I don't just only help a certain type of man, kind of like you said, but generally the ones who want the healing have gone through a lot, just like the women who've come to healing. Get your heart ripped out a couple times, get your head bashed against the wall metaphorically a couple times. You start to take a look, if you're wisdomatic, at your patterns, and no better place to look at your patterns than with a healer. So the men tend to be just simply a bit more open-minded, I guess you would call it, who would step into that space, and that's just to be expected, I guess.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk today, I guess we'll call it, or whenever you're listening, because you can, again, go to Heart Over Ego Radio. You can Google it or go to any major podcast app and listen to all of our shows. But today we're going to be getting into healing of sexual histories. And I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can start us off, and of course we'll volley back and forth. But where do you want to start with that? What do you find to be most important in that space?
Just like with healing any history, it's looking at the patterns there, like you said. So I chose sexual histories just because horror magic.
Mm-hmm.
And, we tend to carry in our country a lot of shame around sex and a lot of guilt around sex. Yeah. And most of it comes from miseducation or no education at all, which is always a fun time. But the healing starts with recognizing the pattern, knowing that I keep indulging in sex not just for the fun or the joy or the delight of sex, because there's always that, but I'm doing it in a destructive way, or I have a destructive pattern with it, or a painful pattern with it. And so the first place that we start is just knowing that that pattern's there, recognizing it and acknowledging it. And then once you can see the pattern, you can begin to heal it, or I say rewrite it.
Beautiful. Brilliant. And in your experiences, have you read a lot of books pertaining to the topic, or mostly personal experience?
I love that you asked that question, because my brain just went personal experience, but then I was like,
you read too.
Reading Joy of Sex at 14.
Well, there you go.
I think that what brings me to it is the non-judgmental space that I live in. I think that's what my clients find best about working with me, is that there's not really anything that you can bring me that I'm just going to be like, oof. I mean, I may say oof, but it's more of like, wow, that's tough. It's not you. That's gross. And so at 14, reading Joy of Sex, I didn't get my sex education from porn. I didn't get it from my parents. I didn't get it from the streets. I got it from a space of like, sex is good. Sex is meant to be enjoyable. Sex is meant to be pleasurable. And I tapped into that pleasure early. So, yeah, I have some history that I've had to heal recently, and I've had the luxury of working with Jenny on some of that. Because, like, I hit my reckless phase in my 30s, because I did my 20s like I was a 50-year-old. Very responsible, very, like, buttons up and all the things. But I started down my personal sexual journey in a very, like, healthy and empowered way.
Awesome. Normally, there's a lot of shame around just simply not having sex and being feared that something god-awful in the afterlife will happen to you if you engage in one of the most natural acts in the world. So it often, I'm glad you had that good experience, because quite often it's a lot more shame-filled. My family wasn't even religious or politically affiliated, but there was just this overtone of don't do it and you better not. And my family is from the generation of just do as I say, you know, and not as I do, or don't ask questions. And I never really resonated with that. It's not very functional, really. But hey, it's all generational healing. But yeah, there was just an overtone that didn't tend to be religious, but more societal of just don't do it, and that's it. Well, how are you going to tell teenagers who have just natural body desires and curiosities just to not do it and end it and think that's okay? Well, what happens is my parents probably didn't have a real good way of describing it. They probably weren't described to, and so they took the route that was shown to them, which is just like, we don't talk about this. Right. You know, or ask questions or whatever. So yeah. I'm glad that you had that healthy experience as a teen. Did you grow up in a religious or, I guess, oppressed socially space in that manner?
No. So our family was Baptist, and if you know nothing about Baptists, they're very forgiving and lenient. Like, Jesus is your savior, you're in. You're in, like, drunk on your way to the pearly gates. It's fine. God will forgive you when you get there. No worries. So we didn't have that, but from my own personal perspective, I didn't want to be a teenage pregnancy. So I took the more responsible route towards the sex, but I didn't have that coming from the outside of, you know, don't have sex until you're married. My mom had me at 17. No one could preach that to me.
And then how old were you when you had your first?
22, because no.
Well, not a teen. is rather young, but, not a teen. Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty young. But I had baby fever at 5, so that's like another conversation for a different podcast. I was just very determined. Like, I had been in a relationship with this person for 6 years when we got pregnant. And I remember calling my mom and doing the, like, small voice thing. I, get my mom on the phone, and I think I'm normal, but I'm clearly not normal because my mom says, "What's wrong?" Like, second sentence, she goes, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm pregnant." And my mom is, like, through the roof thrilled because, small history, my mom wasn't sure that how much beyond my high school graduation she would live. So 4 years later, she's getting some grandbabies. She's super stoked. And I am devastated and terrified because there's a human and I have to raise this human and I'm broke and I'm not sure I like her dad and I don't have $1 million in the bank yet. And what do you mean that there's a human? And I was very pro-choice with the idea that I would always choose life. That was my philosophy. Like, your body, your choice, but my body chooses life, like always. That was the perspective at the time. So not having this baby wasn't an option. And I tell my mom I'm pregnant, and she's like, "Why do you sound like your cat ate your hamster and then got chased in the street by your dog and they both got hit by a car?" And I was like, "Is this thing on? I'm pregnant. Like, hello. Like, I'm dying. I'm devastated. What's wrong? Why don't you get this?" But my mom was 17 when she had me. And I am 22. I was 22 at the time. So she's like, "You turned out fine. And I was hella broke. You're smarter than me. You'll be fine."
Interesting too, Leela, because I've known you for several years now, and you do have like an energy around you, like you said, at 5, had baby fever, thought about having babies, and you couldn't wait to have a baby, or however that went for you. It's really interesting, this response, considering that residual energy around loving children and being happy to, be a mom.
It was the wrong time under the wrong circumstances.
Got it.
And life has taught me that there's no right time and there are no right circumstances, because they're here, they're alive, they're all healthy and smart and all of the things. But they were all bad timing. Every single one of the 3 of them.
Which adds stress, of course.
Yeah.
Already existing stress.
That was the bad timing. The bad timing was I'm broke. I don't have the support system in place that I wanted. But like I said, it all worked out.
It really did. And we are going to cut to a quick commercial, and we will be back.
Welcome to Heart Over Ego Radio, a collection of podcasts designed to enhance your spiritual journey. Join us on Mondays with the Alchemy Sisters and Creating Heaven on Earth. Tuesdays, Star Medicine Podcast and KT Talk Show. Wednesdays, Political Star Talk. Thursdays, the Optimistic Wellness Podcast. Fridays, Turn Yourself In, Self-Mastery for the Intuitive Sensitive Empath. And The Witching Hour, as well as Horror Magic, a show designed to heal stigma around sexuality. Saturdays, Seen and Heard, a podcast about abuse. And Shining the Light on Sex Trafficking. And Sundays, Gather Round for One for All Is Love with Sonia Spirit. We are Heart Over Ego Radio. Find us on any podcast app, Facebook and Instagram. Search Heart Over Ego Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. You're here with Leela Sage. Leela, where should we pick back up? I'm going to hand the mic to you.
Good question. I was thinking, how far down that tangent did we get?
We got down to you having a bit of stress around the timing of your pregnancies, but ultimately having baby fever since it's potentially the age of 5.
Yeah, yes, that. I wanted to actually pivot a little bit back towards the healing piece, so that, because my story is fascinating and I will talk about it for like years and years. But I really want to give the listeners some like practical, tangible things that they can do for themselves if they find themselves in spaces where they've had experiences or they're having experiences where they require some healing. And recognizing the patterns is one thing, but I also started thinking about healings from external things. Like we talked about societal viewpoints, and we talked about family culture viewpoints, and how those things can cause us to create points of view or take those points of view on ourselves, and they don't serve us. And so a big barometer for, like, is this a viewpoint that's serving me or helpful for me is how it feels when you hold that viewpoint. So I held the viewpoint for a very long time, and as you heard before the break, not from my family's urging, but just for myself, of being married, like sex being a thing that happens in marriage. And I did have sex before marriage. I do want to put that out there because my daughter was 2 months old when I got married. But I knew at 15 that I was marrying their dad. And so I had already, like, made that commitment, and it wasn't a religious commitment or choice for me. So it was very easy for me to shift that. So it didn't have to be, like, we didn't have to be legally married. I had already made this commitment. It was one person. We were being very sexually responsible until we weren't, and enter my daughter. But just that, like, that felt true for me. It was true to the core of me, just like it's been true for me for my last few partners to have a monogamous experience. And I say monogamous and not monogamous because humans aren't monogamous. We don't bond with one person for our entire lifetime, except maybe my mother-in-law.
Mine too.
But the rest of us look at other humans and go, ooh, that looks delicious. Even if you decide not to partake, you do find yourself attractive to other people even while you're mated, and that's how you know you're not actually monogamous. If you look at monogamous creatures in nature, they mate with one partner and then they die. So that is the difference there.
I like that, monogamous.
Yes. We call serial monogamy, but it's not really monogamy. We're being monogamous with a partner at a time, which is why I call it monogamous. But like over the years, that's shifted and changed for me. So like knowing what's true for you and knowing the essence of who you are is another space to like really dig in for some healing, because it allows you to stand in like, this is actually mine. This isn't my parents. This isn't my grandparents. This doesn't belong to the church. This isn't from society at large. This is mine. And that sovereignty and that ownership gives us a lot of peace and a lot of power and a lot of freedom.
Boy, does it ever. It's an incredible journey getting to that sovereignty place. It's quite a layer peeling back, where I was just feeling this recently with the COVID kind of having the bottom fall out of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I was just giving thanks to the universe of hard knocks for having me, well, let's just call it struggle with security for a good 30 years. And in that struggle for security, I realized security was an illusion. Mm-hmm. And then once I ripped back the illusion, I realized the only thing was left was my energy. Yes, I could be close with other people's energy and be close with other people, family, whatever. But at the end of the day, the only thing I have control over is my free will. And sometimes not even that, it feels like. But yeah, it's good to get to that. Remove lots of layers, realize you're the one you came for, you're the one you've been waiting for, and you're the only one that can give you any level of real security. And at the end of the day, we do drop these bodies. So the security turns to energy from the sounds of it. And so really we can only trust, kind of rely on energy frequencies, which I like love. So anything that produces that, anything that pushes that energy.
Absolutely. Love and
So,
peace and ease.
yes, it's freedom. That's why I say healing kind of gets a rap for being kitschy, like, oh, I'm going to go see my therapist, which is great. I love that we're breaking down the stigma around it, but it's not kitschy. There are kickbacks. I mean, it can be kitschy, but there are kickbacks, and you do get freedom from heavy worries and stresses and burdens of your mind and your emotion and your spirit. And on the other side of that work is freedom, a lighter existence. It's worth it, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I'm a fan of having a team. Like, yes, I have not one therapist, but two, because I need therapy and my relationship needs some work right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I might need a session with Jenny. And I had a coaching call 2 hours ago. Like, I have a team.
It's good to have a team. And people think because you're a healer that you must just do all the work yourself. And it's like, no, you need a whole team, just like anyone else.
Exactly. And I did a lot of the work for myself for a very long time for a lot of different reasons. One, to grow my capacity. Two, because I'm nerdy and I like unraveling patterns. Like, I was built for this.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I just wasn't in a financial space to be like, yeah, I can afford a healer.
Right.
And so, but because I'm built for this, and the library has free books, I did a massive amount of this on my own with my team. And then I think it was 8 years ago when I met Jenny that I started bringing other healers in.
So cool. Yeah, I appreciate you, Leela, and I've known you for 8 years now, and I was just coming to that recollection earlier today. I'm like, how long has it been now? 7 or 8 years. So it does sound more like 8 when I do the math. But, I really, at that point, it was very pivotal. It was 2012, and we were going through what I called another wave or another breaking or shifting of the energy, and it was really intense. Wasn't quite as intense as COVID and what this is doing, but it was a real rattling of my personal space as well as what felt like the collective. And I would be on the phone with my teacher. My teacher is a trans channel, and he's like, "Well, I don't want to make you worry because you guys can handle it, but it's going to get more intense." And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like the whole planet kind of being, squished and moved around. He goes, "Oh no, and it's going to go up and down, ebbs and flows, but this isn't the last of the intensity." And then here we are 8 years later, and I'm like, he wasn't playing. Look at where we're at now. So that was a very pivotal point, though, to look back on the 2012 time, and that's really when I did step into being a healer more in the open, so to speak. I've always been a massage therapist since I've been about 24 years old. I'm 42 now, but I was in a massage room, and I could only handle so many clients, and I didn't really need to put myself out there. So it's so funny that the first year I put myself out there on a bigger level, there you are. It's fun. We ran across each other.
That's amazing. I didn't know that story. Thank you for sharing it with me.
Yep, Drew got me on podcasts. So that's what ultimately happened, and I think that's how I ran across IEA and you and Tia. If I said her name right there. And it was Drew's shows, and it was pretty fun. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love the radio. I'm a 90s girl. I grew up, born late 70s, but listened to the radio all through middle and high school, and I loved it. So when I got asked to be on a podcast, I took it, and I pushed past fears, which then brought me awesome people like Leela in my life. And that's what I've learned over and over again is if I push past fears. Now, if there's a lion, I'm not going to push my fear and walk past it. I will not do that. I'm talking common sense, but pushing past fears around putting myself out there not only helped my business, but helped me personally. And then I got to network. And it's so cool that I'm to this point now, this many years later, doing shows with myself and putting myself out there even on video, because I'm currently working through some pretty intense energies of being shot and killed in front of people, teaching and preaching in parallel lives. And it was shown to me years ago before I even got in front of people. So you've been there, Leela, since the beginning of me really taking that karma and bending that fear and launching myself into a teacher role, ultimately. I mean, you have to get in front of people, right, generally to teach. Unless it's COVID, then you're in a computer, but you're still in front of people. I'm working past heavy karmas of cellular memory of, the reality that sometimes when I teach, I get killed. But guess what? I'm not lining up like that this lifetime. They don't burn us at the stake much anymore, and things like this. And I mean, they got away with it in the 60s and 70s with taking out revolutionary leaders. But I put myself in a pretty healthy lineup where, again, they're not burning us at the stake, and I know that what I was teaching, if they killed me, it was good. So I got some good stuff. It's like, look at all the greats: MLK, Malcolm X, JFK. Lots of them were taken down, and it was because they were speaking truth. So it's just one way to work with ego is be like, oh, if they're after you, then you must be saying something good.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I got chills that I was like, that was the beginning of your journey. I didn't know that. That's delicious.
Yeah, before that I had just been, doing some healings in massage rooms, and it was great, and I got lots of practice, and I got some confidence. And when I was 24 and I started my first massage business in the back of a health food store, people were telling me they'd see colors when I worked on them, or that I would take them to a different place, and they'd schedule with me simply so I could take them there. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I knew about past lives since I've been 8, but I didn't get it, And then I was like, oh, there's more to it. And that's how you heal and grow, as you become aware. Just like when we were talking about those men, the few men that might come to our table to do some healing, the level of awareness there that's pretty impressive, and that gets you lots of places.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So, Leela, tell everyone how they can get a hold of you if they want to have a session with you.
The best way to find me is LeelaSageHeals.life, and Leela is spelled Lila.
Wonderful. And we have a couple minutes here. Any closing remarks? You want to throw anything out there to the people?
I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but keep going. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when we're on a healing journey, especially if there's like a setback, I'm thinking about it in terms of like if you're on a weight loss journey and you mess up your diet or something, then you're like, oh gosh, you beat yourself up, you think all the horrible, terrible, bad things about yourself. For me personally, it's because I've had health challenges for a really long time. And today, before really all day, I was just like, I feel so awful. And I was really bummed about it because I'd been feeling fantastic for like a couple of weeks. And I was reminded that I get to choose what feeling awful today means. But not only that, I'm not going to heal 20 plus years of whatever my body's been doing in 2 weeks.
Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Human ego wants to do it like that. Human ego wants it done yesterday, but no.
I'm so impatient.
We all are. I remember knowing that you had the same energy frequency I did when I heard you talking about energy work and how you're like, why do we have to do this for a whole hour? I can get this done in like 20 minutes. And I'm like, she's my people. Why drag out something that can be lickety-split and move right along to the next? Do you know where your Mercury is?
I don't.
Is it in a fire sign like mine? It might be. We'll look you up one day.
Almost everything is in Sagittarius. I'll send you my chart later. You can take a look at it. But almost everything's in Sagittarius. Like, I just came to light things on fire, which is hilarious because I'm so sunshine and roses. I'm just like, oh, you're upset. You need a mug of tea. But I will also burn the whole village down.
Yeah, you tempt me. No, it's so funny because as a psychic, healer myself, I do a lot of past life readings and parallel life journeys and what have you. And Leela, like myself, like a lot of the archetypes of the old soul females that I run across to do parallel life lookings at, so to speak, we do carry through the archetype of the peaceful warrior. And it's the best description I can think of is like Bruce Lee, like, and I'm not going to fuck with you, but if you fuck with me, I will kick your ass. You be unfair to someone else, I will kick your ass. Using it for pure heart energy. And so I do feel like you have that archetype like a lot of us do, where we just come in with an incredible amount of a capacity to love and to heal and to hold space, but with a backbone like a razor, because God knows coming to an egoic planet as a heartful individual is incredibly hard, and you need just a little bit of that backbone to not be a doormat here. So I do appreciate, and I often will find myself around women with this razor spine. So I speak, and you won't see it come out of them unless there's an injustice, unless someone very close to them is being threatened in any way, shape, or form. You won't really see it too much, but it's there. And that's what's needed to be a peaceful warrior. That's why the word warrior is next to the word peaceful. It's because there also is a wonderful gift and importance around being able to defend and protect. So, yes, you are one of the peaceful warriors coming into this dimension to be a part of the biggest shift that has ever happened in human history. And look what age we are. Just perfect, huh? To be not too old, but not too young for these next 20 years that we absolutely need. And that's that patience thing, right? I want this bitch flipped yesterday. I want hard energy on top. I want organization and eco-friendly everything. And no. I have to be kicked back into a space of like at least 20 more years of moving this energy around so that we can get where we want to go. But who better? Peaceful warriors coming doing the tough work. There was ones before us, of course, too. But thank you so much, Leela. It's been a pleasure. You'll have to come see me next season on the Alchemy Sisters next year. We'll get you lined up with an interview over there. Everyone, this is Leela Sage, and she is a magical healer. Her information's on our show page. You can find her on Facebook. Do you still have your Leela Sage page?
I do. It's facebook.com/Leela Sage Heal.
There it is. Go ahead and look her up and go to any major podcast app and search Heart Over Ego Radio. And not only will you get all of our archived episodes, but we are making more daily. So you heard our lineup in our commercial. We have upwards about 12 shows now. So go ahead, check it out. We have everything from horror magic to political astrology shows, and everything in between. We appreciate you for listening. And until next time, you have a lovely day.